An observation once made by Miles Davis about improvisation is that you shouldn't fear mistakes because there aren't any. It's a noble sentiment and one with a lot of truth to it. However, it's probably a little bit easier to live by if you're A, a musical genius, and B, you play quite sophisticated modal jazz. For most of the rest of us, we've probably been in scenarios where we have made what we would consider a mistake. We've played a note that just sounds bad. But let's experiment with this idea a little bit. What if you were playing something a little bit more run-of-the-mill, maybe a humble 12-bar using dominant chords? Are there any notes that we should consider unavailable to us? Well, let's find out. Okay, so our setting for this is a little loop I made earlier, a 12-bar sequence in the key of B that sounds like this. And so on through a 12-bar sequence. We all know what that sounds like, and possibly some of you are even a little sick of it. But here's the thing. A sequence like that, using all dominant chords, is actually a lot more harmonically sophisticated than it's often given credit for. It supports the use of lots of different notes. In fact, all 12 of them, as we shall go on to discover. Now, you'll notice I'm saying all 12 of them. I am aware there are instruments that can use microtones, intervals smaller than a semitone, so my sincere apologies to any players of the zither or the Iranian setar. I am being a bit predictably Western, and I'm just talking about the 12 different keys you would get on a piano, the 12 different note names you would get on a piano and on a conventionally fretted instrument like this. Right, so with that explanation out the way, let's look at what we can do. So the first thing a guitarist would typically reach for in this kind of a setting is probably going to be the minor pentatonic scale. In the key of B, that is going to be the following notes. B, D, E, F sharp, A, and then back to B. So we've covered 5 of our 12, and that little bunch there will help you navigate through a 12-bar pretty successfully. Serve you perfectly well for a bit, but let's look at a few little modifications we can make and add in some extra notes. Okay, so the thing to bear in mind about this, the use of any given note, context is everything. So let's talk specifically about what we might do over the 1 chord, that B7 chord. Now, if you're one of the select few brilliant and good-looking people who've watched my channel before, you'll remember I've spoken a little bit about the key feature of a dominant chord being that it's not really either fully major or minor. It has elements of both. And because it's like that, it supports a bit of soloing using elements of both major and minor scales. It's not like you have to commit fully to one or the other. So a few little modifications we can make to that minor pentatonic scale right out the gate. First of all, we can include the major third, which is going to be this D sharp note. It's in the chord anyway, so we can absolutely use it in the soloing. Likewise, the major sixth works really well. This G sharp note here. So you notice we're getting that kind of hybrid sound. It's not really major or minor, it's just dominant. Another modification we can make to that scale is we can include the blue note, the note from the blues scale. That in this setting is going to be an F natural. Sounds pretty unlikely out of context, but most of us have probably used the blues scale before. We know that if you just kind of flirt with it a little bit, go in and out, use it as a passing tone, it works really, really nicely. Now the other thing I'm going to do, at the end of the initial 4 bars of the B7 chord, before it's about to change to the 4 chord, the E7, what can work really nicely to kind of highlight that change is if we stop a phrase on the A note, the minor 7th of the B. Now this is in the chord anyway, and it's in the minor pentatonic scale, so we've not added anything. But I'm going to approach that A note via the A sharp note. Again, rather like with the blues note, the diminished fifth, I'm just going to use it as a little passing tone, because again, if we zero in on it in and of itself, probably what we would indisputably call a wrong note. But if we just use it as a way of bridging the gap between the B and the A at the end of that initial 4-bar sequence, I think it works quite nicely. I might play it up in that octave, actually. So we've added 4 notes already. So that 5-note pull has gone up to 9 out of 12 possible ones just on the first chord. And then, of course, comes the E7 chord. Let's have a look at what we can do here. Now, as we go up to the 4 chord, we're not venturing too far away from our home base of B, so we don't want to modify things too much. Most of the notes we've already discussed will work just as well over the E7 as well. Not quite all of them. That major third suddenly sounds pretty sour in the context of the E7. It really doesn't fit very nicely at all, in my opinion. You may well get something out of it though. Do experiment. So what we are going to add though is the C sharp note, the 2nd of B. Now, for those of you who care about naming intervals at all times, worth observing that that note is the major 6th of the E7. If you play it against the E note, it gives a very sweet melodic sound. So I'll zero in on that note as the E7 occurs. So we're doing all right. We're up to 10 out of 12. That leaves a couple that some people find a little bit problematic. Let's have a look. Okay, so there are 2 notes we haven't touched upon yet. The minor or flattened 2nd, which is a C natural, and the minor 6th, which is a G natural. So let's have a listen to those notes just at the start of the track. Not terribly inspiring stuff, you might think, but remember, all about context. Let's try it at a different point within the track. Let's wait for the F sharp 7, the 5 chord, to come around. At this point in the track, if you treat that C note as a bit of a passing tone and move down to the B, it actually works really, really nicely. I'm going to play a little phrase here where I do that, move from the C to the B, and then down to the A, and then down to the F sharp. It's almost like, because the F sharp 7 has moved a sufficient distance away from our root chord, it's almost like we accept that as a new root chord, albeit very briefly. And that phrase is essentially an F sharp blues scale. but it fits really nicely within our B minor pentatonic framework that we're kind of modifying. We're just changing that note at the top. So let's have a listen to that over that F sharp 7 chord. Suddenly it works really, really nicely if you time it effectively. So that just leaves the G natural. Let's have a look at what we can do here. So the minor sixth, the G natural, is a bit of a tricky one. It frankly sounds just altogether wrong over each of those chords. But there is one particular point in the track we can use it and it works really, really effectively. And that's the turnaround, the bit at the very end of the sequence where we get that brief jump up to the 5 chord before we return to the start of the sequence. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to approach the root note of that 5 chord, which is the F sharp of course, via the G natural. So we get this little semitone walk down, very, very common in blues turnarounds, where we kind of superimpose this note as a way of just increasing the tension at the point of the turnaround. And in fact, I'm going to play it as a little 7 chord shape. So I'm going to play 10 on the A string, 9 on the D string, and 10 on the G string, and then just move that back a fret at the turnaround. Allow me to demonstrate. So there we go, a bit of blues soloing using all 12 notes. Really hope you enjoyed. If so, please consider liking, subscribing, maybe even signing up to memberships. All sorts of ways you can have more of me in your day-to-day life. But anyway, thanks again. I hope to see you with something else soon. Cheers.